Good to see you, Neil.
My next guest, Fair and Balanced, does not see this double standard. Labor Notes Director Mark Brenner says even with big spending by unions, they're still outnumbered by corporations. Mark, you know what? We could argue these numbers all the time.
Yeah, you don't want to talk about them, do you, Neil?
No, well, because you can argue the outside money, outside influence to the tune of tens of millions of dollars and get nowhere. What I'm saying is the double standard about whose numbers are more evil.
Well, Neil, you can't ignore the numbers if you're going to talk about the double standard. And what the numbers tell us is that even before the Supreme Court decision that allowed corporations and unions to take money directly out of their coffers and put it into politics, unions were being outspent 10-1, and now it's only
Where
getting
are you getting
bigger.
the 10-1 figure?
You go to the Center for Responsive Politics. Their website's opensecrets.org. You can find all this stuff there. And that's,
right,
I'm
so
being generous.
Wait a minute. If we're going to argue,
okay.
I think it's speechless math on both sides because it's hard to... It's not sticky. That's the problem. There's no way to stick to it.
Well,
so
and things are moving quickly.
The $160 million or so from labor, outside labor interests poured into this race versus the 95 to 100 million of business money poured into this race, just bogus.
No, you're talking about specifically Chamber of Commerce versus AFSCME. What we're talking about here...
No, I'm going all labor monies poured into this race.
Okay, so why is that number coming up shorter than the business total that you gave, right?
No,
so
it isn't. No, it's coming up bigger.
It's coming up bigger, right?
It's coming up bigger than the business.
Billion plus, right?
No, I just told you what it was. It's not. But again, it could be a he said, she said thing with you. Here's what I'll say. Let's say both are giving a ton of money, and it's money that can't be followed or even verified. And I'll grant you, maybe on both sides. What I'm saying is, I wouldn't have a problem with it if we cited both. But when the New York Times puts on its front page that the chamber money and giving is evil and suspect, and the AFSCME money is not, in fact, not even reported, then that slaps a double standard to me.
Well, first off, as you know well, this is a dueling headline story that you're talking about here because your big boss there, Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal, actually reported this story just like you're reporting it. And so what we know is that this is out there.
No, by the way, this started out on the New York Times seizing on existing data that was out there.
Right.
So I'm quoting a New York Times story. So now, all I want to know is why there wasn't the same vigilance in reporting union money, and why, when the White House was asked about this, didn't seem to have a problem with the union money, had a very big problem with the business money.
I don't know what the White House has a problem with or doesn't have a problem with. The quote you read basically says what we need is transparency, and I absolutely agree with that because money is polluting our political system, Neil. And the fact of the matter is the people like Steve Forbes and yourself and your boss Rupert Murdoch have a hell of a lot more of it than working people do. And so what I'd like to do is see actual public financing of elections so we can get all of this crap out of the system and people can have
if you
level
want a better
playing field.
Police money coming in. I have no problem with people trying to.
That's
but
the
you know
start.
what? I'm going to set sacrilege. I have no problem with business or union or anyone trying to buy influence in elections. It's the American way. Here's what is not. Picking and choosing what you find to be the more American way. And then always treating business like a villain. You know, I come from a family of union members.
Okay.
So I just want to see fair being fair. If you're going to call one side nefarious, then acknowledge that the other side could be nefarious. I don't see that.
Okay, Neil, so what you're telling me is that when, you know, big oil is trying to buy politicians so that they can pollute the air more in their refineries, and the steel workers or the unions that represent those workers actually want disclosure, and they're trying to push for politicians who will actually pass disclosure laws, they're being nefarious too. Because that's what you're finding.
Well, I'm
Where we're
you know
pushing
what,
money in politics, it's about transparency. It's about